Okie dokie. New position and everything.
Yep.
We are back. And if you're watching this in replay, you might be wondering, what are we back from? But we just did our new products for the 26th of September. So now this is the live discussion of Lucy Foley's The Guest List. And I don't have a physical copy with me. I actually listened to the book on audio, which I do believe the audiobook itself, I think it was nice. I mean, it was all different, felt like different voices that I can remember. I think it was different voices. And I felt like it was produced pretty well. I had no error with that. But I'm sure, and especially from our discussion in the Voxer group, speaking of Voxer group, if anyone out there is wanting to join the Voxer group, you can join at any time. You just have to let me know what your username is, and I'll add you to the group. But yeah, I think the consensus is we're not sure that this is the favorite book of the year. Let's just say that. But yes, so we read Lucy Foley's The Guest List, which is essentially about a wedding party who is on an island somewhere in the UK, and something bad happens. It kind of has a mixed perspective as far as, like, one, it goes between narrators, and two, it goes between times, but not long. It's like before and after, basically. But yeah, let's get into this one. Let's talk about it. Before we do that, just wanted to let everyone know we did run your polls for picking October's book, and that book is In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. Reading sprints will be on the 9th at 4:30. So if you're interested in reading with us in October, we have a very spooky read to be reading. Yeah. So yeah, let's get back to The Guest List. Now, for those of you who read it, and I know we did have a few people who did DNF it, which is perfectly A-okay. That's awesome. Don't waste your time on a book you don't like.
Not enjoying yourself, get out.
Absolutely.
If you don't want to read it, don't read it.
Yeah. Don't waste your time with a book you don't like. That's for sure. But for this book, let's all, you in the comments as well, let us know if you were to rate this book, what would you rate it from 1 to 5, 5 being amazing? So similar to how you rate on Goodreads. What would you rate this book? It looks like Allie is here. Hi, Allie.
Yeah, hi, Allie. Good morning, Allie.
What did you think, Laura, for ratings?
Okay, 2 things. One, sorry we're a little bit late. I didn't realize my iPad did not have a charge, so I had to scramble for a charge cord, shuffle everything around. So I'm here now. Hopefully it doesn't crap out on me, but it could. So sorry about that. And 2 is I haven't finished this quite yet, but Dani did tell me what happened, which I asked her to. I am 50 pages from the end. This week was not a good week for me, so I just sort of forgot. And then I fell asleep this afternoon, which was not helpful either. So all that being said, from everything I have read, and I'm very close to the ending, I'm going to give this 3, like bang in the middle. I think it's very readable, and I like the setting and everything. And I like the different perspectives. Like, that's really good. But there were so many ways this could have gone, all very predictably, if you read or watch mysteries. So yeah, I'm just going to go just bog standard 3. What did you think?
I am like on a 2.5. Probably a 2.5 because, yes, I do agree with it, like the readability. And like I said, I listened to an audio, but even with that, I still feel like because the chapters were short and everything, like I feel like I would have been able to read it pretty quickly as a reader, like as a physical reader. But I felt like it was very predictable. I felt like I knew everything that was going to happen before it was going to happen. Like nothing surprised me. I feel like it was an episode of Midsummer Murders, like plucked right out from one of the seasons. And I don't know, I didn't care for it. I didn't feel like the characters were very developed. And even Allie said it way better than I did, but they were like caricatures of each other or of themselves. Like, so you'd have a character who has this trauma happen to them, and like it was like the only thing that you knew about them. There was no development of their character other than their trauma. Or like a good example is Jules. So she's the bride and she is crazy. Like she has an anger issue, some kind of anger issue. Like she is like breaking the crap out of stuff, not just throwing a vase, but throwing a vase against the wall and then wrapping her hand in a towel so that she can pick up the rest of the vase and smash it against the wall so that it is literally in smithereens. But that's all you know. You don't know really why she's crazy or what her issues are. I mean, other than, being the unwanted child, the mistake, not having a fulfilling relationship with her mother or her father. But like, there's no depth to that. So I have to give it like a 2.5 because it just didn't do it for me. And I was really excited to read this book. And we don't talk about this again later, but, I think following up with this after reading Big Little Lies, I was totally way more alert to like plot twist stuff. And considering this was almost an identical kind of plot twisty thing, I was kind of like, oh, well, saw that coming a million miles away. But let's look in the comments and see where everyone else kind of sat. It looks like Andy was in the 3.5 to 3. So similar to you, as was Sherry. Hi, Sherry. Yeah. You figured it out too? Yep. Hi, Cool Gamer. So yeah, I felt like everything was just, I was not surprised by anything. I was like, yep. Saw that coming. Was waiting for you to reveal that. I don't know. It just felt like everyone was so flat. Like the characters were they were literally just their ailments. There was nothing else about them other than what was wrong with them. It's weird. I don't know how better to explain that.
That makes sense.
Allie gave it a 3 as well. Yeah. It was too much. And I think Laura and I were talking about it a little bit before the live stream, but like there were too many connections to Will. Like really, he's going to have dated this person and this person, married this person, killed this person. Like one person in all of these people's lives, it just it wasn't believable to me. The sisters, sure. But everything else, come on now. Andy even mentions that the characters were pretty unlikable. Yes. Yes, they were. Speaking of characters, why don't we just jump right on into talking about them? So we have a couple of them, and I don't know if I spelled this correctly because I don't have the audiobook anymore. But so we have Aoife, who is the wedding planner, and then we have Jules, who is the bride. Jono was the best man. Olivia was the bridesmaid. Hannah was the +1. And then Will is the groom. We do eventually get his perspective as well towards the end. But so all of these people narrate portions of the book. So we're able to get their point of view and a little bit of their background, what they bring to the table. Now, when you think about these characters, like if you were to like describe these people, what kind of descriptions would you give them?
Do you mean like physically or in what way?
Oh no, if you were to just describe these people to someone else maybe that hasn't read the book.
I would say look at all these titles of who these people are, and that's exactly who they are. Like an romantic comedy person, oh, the best man, kind of a buffoon, a little overweight, less successful. Yep. The bride, controlling, kind of angry for no reason, but like coldly beautiful, and you're supposed to admire her even though she's kind of a jerk. Yep. I mean, the groom, so totally perfect, and yeah, I mean, just if you've seen a romantic comedy or you've watched a mystery series, it's these people. Like that's it. They are just two-dimensional.
Yep.
How about you?
Yeah, I mean, they're all like typecasted. I mean, the only one that was interesting to me was Aoife, because I was like, there's something interesting about you. Like, why do you have a chapter? So that's why, and spoilers ahead, everyone, that's why I pegged her right away as being the murderer, because I'm like, who cares what you have to say? Like, how are you involved with all these people? Like, why are we getting your point of view? And you could say that she was like the control, like she was the neutral party. So you're getting like the neutral perspective. But we had that in the now chapters where you're finding out that there's a dead body and the lights went out and everything. So you wouldn't have two of those. So I knew straight on that she was going to be important, that something was going to happen with her, and that, you know, as we got farther along, and she kept talking about the grave, and she keeps talking about the grave, and she's talking about how, you know, important it was to have them here. I was like, she is the murderer. And turns out she was. And I figured out why she was the murderer even far before she murdered Will, which to me is the biggest twist of it all, or supposed to have been. But I pegged that way early on. I was like, she's got to have some kind of connection to the boy, because they keep talking about this boy. And then clearly Freddie is the other boy, because they called him a fat you know what in both the present and the past. So clearly it's the same character, because I mean, they probably do call everyone that they deem that same name. But I'm like, as an author, like, it's gonna be the same person. So for me, I was just like, everything is too easy, like too, like, it's like a puzzle. It's just like all coming together way too easily. It's like a, you know, 250 piece puzzle as opposed to 1,000 piece puzzle. You're just, the pieces are bigger and they're easier to put together. So I don't know. I was kind of like, what the heck? And like you said, their titles is exactly what they are. The bride, the best man, the bridesmaid, you know, never the bride, always the bridesmaid. And for me, like, she was so annoying. Like, I felt bad for her.
Olivia?
But she was also, yes, she was so annoying. Like, so, it was so sad. Like, she needs a therapist, first of all. But like, at no time you're not going to say anything about the fact that, like, this is Steve. Like, this is the guy. Like,
Right.
I mean, the shock of it all should have just come out of your mouth when you saw him. Like, Steve? Like, that's what you would have said in real life.
Right.
You would have been like, Steve? What are you doing here? Not, oh my gosh, he's saying his name is Will, and now he's with my sister, and I'm so young and stupid, I can't possibly say anything. Oh, I've been in such a traumatic event that I can't possibly say anything for these couple of months that now we're going to have to wait for the what? Like, really? I didn't like it. I thought it was dumb. I was like, no, not happening. You know, the funny thing though with Will is the entire time he still didn't think he was like in the wrong at any point. And he
Right.
had me fooled a little bit too. Like the whole time, like every time, like when he started to speak too, I was just like, he doesn't even seem like a bad guy. But that's how bad of a guy he is that he even thinks it. Like he wasn't even like looking at anyone. Like it didn't even seem like he was crazy. He was just like, oh, I'm just gonna have to smooth this over. And I'm like, what? He seems legit, like an okay kind of guy. And I'm like, no. He's a murderer. He is a gross dude. No, we don't like him.
He believes his own hype completely, you know, because he's beautiful to look at. He can get away with anything, literally murder, obviously. But people just buy it on the surface because someone is attractive to look at, and he seems so affable. But those are the people always that I'm like, please get away from me. No, thank you. It just seems so fake.
Yeah.
So yeah, he just bought into his own hype, and everyone else kissed his butt his whole life. So he can just keep kissing his butt the rest of his life, as far as he's concerned, you know.
Yeah.
Yep. No consequences for good old Will.
Allie thinks that is a perfect way to describe them, Laura. A+ for you. Will slept around in uni, successful, popular. Yep. Hi, Melissa.
Hey, Melissa.
Not a fan of the neutral chapters. They felt really off in multi-piece. Yes. And I will tell you, in the audiobook, it's a completely different voice. It's like this deep male voice that reads those chapters. But every time it happened, it would say like wedding night now or something. And I'm just like, wait, what? And then he would start talking and I'm like, okay, wait, where are we? What are we doing? Aren't we always on the wedding night? Like it was so confusing because there wasn't much of a difference of time. So yeah, I was like, I'm not quite sure how I didn't get it. But yeah, until the very end where it was like it meshed together and it was just all wedding night, it was trippy. I was like, I don't know who's talking right now. But yeah. I wish it would have been more like more time in between. You know, like when you have flashbacks, like there's a lot more time between. I think that would make more sense.
Yeah, it's not like a few hours or a day. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it really was. It was only like a couple of hours at one point. I was just like, why don't you just write it in real time? So I think it was supposed to like be suspenseful, like the whole time you're trying to like figure out who done it. But she just didn't do a very good job of it. I don't feel so. Super annoyed with Olivia telling details about her sex life to Hannah, who is much younger, and she had just met. Weird. Hannah was older. So Hannah is married to Charlie, who is the friend of Jules. Olivia's like 19, and Hannah is like in her 34 or something like that. She's probably the same age as Jules, if not a little bit. But yeah, when they were sitting there and she just like starts divulging all this information, like at first I thought it was weird, and then I think back to some of my wedding days. And not to say that this is the same situation, but I will tell you, and I don't know if anyone else has a similar situation, but when you're a bridesmaid, like for some reason, like those couple of days or hours, whatever, you are like best friends with all of the other bridesmaids. Like no matter if you just met or you knew each other, you're lifelong friends. You're going to be friends forever. You're going to exchange numbers. You're going to drink out of each other's drinks all night until you wake up and you go home and then you never speak to each other again. So I can see how the camaraderie of the day can like give you a little bit of, courage out your mouth. But yeah, like the moment she meets, she's like trying to tell her about this terrible experience she had, I thought that was a little weird, considering she didn't know Hannah from Adam. Though I feel like Hannah was the most grounded person, by the way, of the entire group. I felt she really handled it all pretty well. Like, she wasn't pushy, she wasn't judgmental. She was kind of letting her go at her own pace. The only thing that I felt was a little unrealistic is like she kept coming back to it as if she was like trying to help her get through something. Like, oh, so you didn't finish your story. Would you like to finish your story now? Like, I feel like just drop it. Like, I don't know. I felt that was a little weird. I felt like that was too convenient for the plot. Like, oh, great, they're back together so they can tell each other more of this story that the readers need to find out. So, yeah. I thought that was weird. But
I will say, though, like, for that part, for me, that was very believable, because my whole life I have been the person people spill their stuff to. Like, people have come up to me in grocery stores, strangers I don't know, and like made a small chat and said, like, start talking about their lives and just casually drop that they're having an affair. Like, that's not unusual. And for me to be like in a friend group, if we're like at a camp or whatever, like, I'm always, because I'm an introvert and I get overwhelmed by people and things, I just want to be by myself in my bedroom. Thank you very much. But like, I go do things, and then like I'm always on the edge of something because I'm trying to like stay as far back as I can from all this energy. Someone always comes up to me and starts talking and says some really big stuff. So that's normal for me. Like, I'm the one that hears the stuff all the time. I'm always off in a corner with somebody else. And people have stopped talking about stuff, whatever, just like Hannah and Olivia's conversations, like interrupted over like 3 or 4 meetings or whatever you want to call it. People will be like, so anyway, so blah, 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 blah. And it's like 4 hours later and they'll pick up right where they left off. So that's very normal to me. That seemed like that's my norm. So I realize now that that's not the norm for most people, but that's very usual for me. Like, people just tell me stuff. So yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I'm always just like, oh, okay. Well, have you thought about leaving your marriage? You know, I mean, are you really happy? Don't you both deserve better? I mean, it helps. I've had a lot of therapy too, I think. But yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you hit it nail on the head with, like, they're like shells of characters that are meant to be in this kind of story. Now, kind of like an offshoot, but you've read And Then There Were None. Am I right?
No, but I've seen 3 adaptations of it and at one stage play. So
would you say that this is similar?
A piss poor version, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have not read it. I think I own it.
Mm-hmm.
No, I probably don't. I don't remember. I don't know. But I know I've heard that is what this has been compared to. But yeah.
And that's what her first book was compared to as well.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So for those of us who have read this book, now we read Big Little Lies right before this. There's a lot of similar things to talk about with this. Like, I legit hardly even changed the questions because it's like the same topics can be just talked about in the same book, except this was not a very good replica of the amount of like development that we read in Big Little Lies. So as far as the format of this book, we have that mixed perspectives. We talked a little bit about that in this last question, so we won't, stay on this one for too long. But let's kind of flip it. If this were to be written any other way, do you feel like it would have been more, like it would have been better, or do you think it needed to have been in this mixed perspectives?
I think it needed to be for a lot of the twists and turns. So you had to get to know everyone in their brain and how they're thinking, and get the like right amount of strung out like degrees from Will and Jules to get a sort of a round perspective of the situation. So I think it was necessary for a thriller. If this was written as a cozy mystery, though, absolutely not. Like, there's no way that you don't need that. In a cozy, you're getting pretty much always the main character's point of view, and then that's it. And you might hear someone else say something or something else, like, oh, that's just how they are, or whatever, but it's pretty much just the one person.
Mm-hmm.
So it have worked pretty well as a cozy, obviously without the blood, and less detail for the sex stuff.
Right.
But that's all mystery stuff. So I don't know. I think it needed to be like for this genre. Is this a thriller? I don't know. I think it's meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not. I don't know. So yeah, I think it did help, but it didn't have to be written this way either. But that's what she does, is write books like this where you get everyone's different perspective like 4 or 5 times, and then you just keep going around and around in a circle till it catches up or the truth is out or whatever. So
yeah, I almost wish
yeah,
this would have been written.
Thing.
Yeah, I almost wish this would have been written like a Miss Marple, like where the murder has happened. You have all the people, and by the end of the book, you bring all the people into one room and you tell them what happened and who the murderer was and why they did it and all that fun stuff. Because this way, I don't know, I didn't engage with any of the characters. I really could care less. And I almost felt as if the author took a whiteboard, wrote off all the characters, and then like took a different color and like drew lines about how they are all going to be connected, and like, where am I going to drop all these Easter eggs in the book so that you could pick up on like the little things that you would know that they were connected. I'll tell you exactly where I figured out that Will and Steve were the same person is when Will and Jules had just had sexy time, and she said something about he's in the shower and she's not, and she's like, but he doesn't mind. And I was like, oh, he's Steve. Because when Olivia was talking about her and Steve, she was saying like that he did some downtown, but she wasn't showered yet or whatever, and he didn't care. He didn't mind that. And I was like, oh, well, that's stupid. Like, now I know that these two people are the same person, and it's like you put like an obvious thing in there to like be like, see, this is where I like said that it's the same person, but you didn't notice because you were just the reader. It's like, no, I noticed right away because you're using the same thing over and over again. So it's like stuff like that, like almost amateurish writing, like I said, where you're just like on a board and like, ooh, this is what I'm gonna do, and then you just plop it all on a page and hope it works with like no development of any of the characters.
I have to say too, like I don't dislike the author, and I give her major props for this because, I mean, she's successful. She's a successful writer at these mystery thrillers, whatever genre we're calling these books. And she sells a lot. She's getting tons of hype. She's still super popular. People really wait for her next new book. Like, I give her major props for being an average writer. You know, like, this is impressive. So, and this is not a knock on Miss Foley here, but then I think maybe I should write, because I think I would write like this or better, and then maybe I could do this. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, I can totally do this. And it's not super complicated, but it's complicated enough. Like, I could see all this stuff spinning out. I know when you and I were talking before the live show, you said, okay, so who do you think did it? And I was listening to all these people, and you were like, because it could have gone any one of whatever way she wanted to do. However, I think it could have been anybody. Like, the perspective that we get, it could have been any one of these people. If like the secondary connections were different, it could have been anybody, because it's all tenuous, and it all hinges on the back story and all the back connections that we're supposed to be surprised by or not, so it could have been anyone. And I thought, I think I would do a tighter job, quite frankly, of putting things together and making these surprises actually surprising,
Right.
And again, I'm not knocking Miss Foley at all, but I was sort of like, okay, wow, oh, well, I could do this at the very least,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think she outs herself.
So I had to make that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she outs Aoife as the murderer as soon as she outs Freddie as being the fat you-know-what, because we know that that is what the boys called the boy at the school who was friends with the other boy who died. So by outing Freddie to be who he was, I immediately was like, oh, Freddie and Aoife. Aoife must be related to the boy. And she's with him because it's like the closeness with whatever. And so, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I've watched too many episodes of British mysteries, but there's always, yeah, it's always something like that. So I totally, like, as soon as I figured out who Freddie was, then I was like, oh, she's talking about the grave. Because at first I thought maybe that was going to be like a child or something, which it was. It just wasn't her child. So yeah, it does. It kind of makes you feel like I could do this myself. So back up to our comments. I don't want to miss all these, but Allie says next time a stranger does that to you, you should listen to them and then say, that'll be $100, please.
It's my new part-time job.
Yeah. She also says if third person omniscient, there would be probably need more character interaction and dialogue. Yeah. That's true.
That's true.
Yes, this is really annoying to me, Allie. Like, the amount of connections to Will with all these people was just ludicrous is the right word. It was just absolutely annoying. It was so dumb. It was so dumb. Yes, we are agreed all the way around. So yeah, let's move on. So in this book, we know that almost every character has some kind of crazy trauma. Olivia, I think, has the most, it seems, because that's all she talks about. So she has this breakup at uni, which leads her to want to make herself feel better. So she makes herself feel older. She goes online. She basically tries to find a one-night stand, meets Steve, and has like an illicit affair almost with this guy until she, as she states it, messes up by trying to be too mature or whatever, by taking him to this event of her sisters. But before she can even introduce them, she makes a total fool of herself and gets sent home. And then he essentially ghosts her. Then she finds out that she's pregnant, and then, with no explanation of why she's made this decision, has an abortion. I felt really taken aback that there was like no verbiage on like that she made that decision or why she made that decision or why that would make sense to just do that way, other than the fact that her mom was like, oh yeah, like I wish I would have done that with Jules. Like I was really kind of taken aback that that was like, yeah, like that was the decision. Like I didn't get that. I was like, what? Okay, so she has that, which has now propelled her very deep into this depression, self-harm. She's just spiraling out of control. And now in her life has come back this Steve, who is actually Will, who is now engaged to her sister. So we have that trauma. The sister clearly has some trauma because she's got some anger issues, which are directly related to her feeling unloved by her parents.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Jono's trauma of not being the best man because he's getting overlooked for whatever, and his whiskey venture is non-existent.
He was the poor kid at school,
Yeah.
with all these posh kids. Yeah.
Yep. You have Aoife, who has lost someone. You don't know technically who that is until the end. Hannah, who's in kind of a sticky situation with her husband. She knows there's something between him and Jules. She's self-conscious about it. Feels like their marriage is a little, wavery at this point. And all these traumas, do they feel authentic? Do they feel like they're well developed? Why does every single person have something crazy traumatic going on in their lives? There's no stable character here. I mean, Hannah is probably the most stable, but she has the trauma of losing her sister from dating somebody who then released a video of them. And it's just like, yeah. I mean, what were your thoughts on that?
It felt like a lot of like a subscriber to Psychology Today, or someone who did a lot of Googling about different ways trauma can present, and was trying to purposely pick related but not related on the surface connections about sex and marriage and fidelity and kids, so it just felt, especially Olivia, like it's like she felt more like a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old to me in her maturity level, and like how high her emotions are at all the time, and like the level of trauma. And I'm not knocking trauma for any one of the events that she went through, like trying to make herself feel better by pretending to live in her sister's apartment and like having this illicit affair with this older guy, and she got sloppy drunk, and then he ghosted her, and then she's pregnant, and all that stuff. It all seemed like this like knee-jerk reaction, and even though it was over a decent period of time, several months before he ghosted her, at least, she never tried to get a grip. Her mom never noticed or said anything, and her mom's supposed to pay attention to her the most of the two of them, and it's all this big bad secret, and it's like at no point you kind of go, okay, all right, let's get a grip here. Or you don't talk to a friend, you have nothing else, you just keep spiraling, and you stay at this super high level of anxiety long term. And like you said too earlier, especially with her, the first time she met Will, that you weren't like, Steve, automatically it just comes out of your mouth. You just decide to go, no, I'm going to swallow this, and then never say anything again, and just be even more dramatic, and I'll just cut myself some more. And I realized that cutting and self-harm is not a logical decision. I'm not saying that, but it was just like this girl was at 99 and she stayed at 99 the entire time. And it's like, seems like years that she was that way after Callum dumped her. And it's like, okay, how old are you, seriously? Because you seem very middle schooly about all of this. And everyone ages at different times, and some of us are younger than others, no matter what your physical age. I understand all that stuff too, but it was like, really, there was not even like the hint of a grip at any point. Like that level of trauma and like spiraling seemed so like, oh my gosh, seriously? That was the most unbelievable part to me about all this stuff, was her, because she was so just like manic practically.
Yeah, she's very over the top. It was like the author was assigning everyone a traumatic event so that she could have depth of characters, but she didn't have any depth within that. It was just, you got a trauma, you got a trauma, you got a trauma. Everyone has trauma, which everyone does have trauma, but these were all like, like super traumas. It's like, whoa. Whereas, and if we're going to sit here and compare, in Big Little Lies, everyone had trauma, but you saw different levels of that trauma. You saw where people were working through certain traumas or had worked through traumas or were going through that or how they were going to go through that. You saw it develop. You saw it, evolve. You saw how it interacted with other people. And I know we're not trying to sit here through the whole discussion and just compare the two writers, but worlds apart as far as character development and backstory and all of that. I mean, so much more depth of character in Big Little Lies as opposed to this, where you have a similar kind of thing happening. And I don't know. I don't know. It's very annoying because you wanted to like relate to somebody. You wanted to like try to feel something for somebody. And the whole time I'm just like, I don't know who I'm supposed to like want to win in this situation. I don't really know that I care about anybody. And I don't really know if I care if anyone dies either, because I'm just like, whatever, like who's going to get stabbed, I guess. So the biggest thing too, and moving into kind of the next topic, which is a similar topic as we had in the last book, is this bullying with these Trefelian crazy MFers with this like chanting and like what's the game they played? Survive the Night. Like,
Survivor.
First of all, you put a bunch of boys in a school by themselves, it's gonna happen. It's like Lord of the Flies. It's always going to happen. Someone gonna die. And to have it continue so many years later, it's just like, I feel like it is a broken record in media, in books, in film. Like, I'm so sick of, when I was in primary school, this really bad thing happened and blah, 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 blah. And then like whatever happened comes back to haunt you. I'm over it. Do you know how many episodes of Midsummer Murders plays on this topic? Like at least 2 that I can think of right now. Just I know there's more.
Yeah.
So the bullying thing, I mean,
and everyone I can think of has them.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bullying is really out of control. And I mean, I have no doubt that it happens, and I have no doubt that all this stuff happens. Maybe not all this connected with like murder stuff, but I'm sure this happened, and probably it happened a lot more before the internet and like 40s, 50s, whatever. And there is that whole mentality, from what I have read and seen in the British public school system about stiff upper lip, and you don't say anything, and like you just keep going on, and like you're going to try and fit in, and you whatever, all this stuff. Like I'm sure it's a stereotype for a reason, but my God, literally every mystery I can think of that is set in England, at least in part, or has British characters, this has come up. The same thing, like the same, all boys or all girls school, some big like at night dares, whatever. It's all the same. Like it comes up every single time.
Yep.
So it takes a couple of seasons, but it's always there. So it was like, okay, this is fine.
Yeah.
This is not.
Well, and do you feel do you feel like what happened to Charlie was even needed in the book? Like, what point did that serve? What purpose did that serve?
I mean, it just sort of proves that Will is still Will, but we didn't need that part about that. It just seemed,
and because I thought that was going to be the reason why whatever happened, like whatever happened at the stag party was going to be the catalyst of someone getting murdered. And really it wasn't. All it did was like embarrass somebody. That's it. Like,
right.
Okay.
And they have everyone like constantly refer to it over and over again. Like, don't talk about the stag do. Don't talk about the stag do. Oh, but don't talk about like, and then to have it be that, like, not that was not a traumatic thing for him to experience, but like, really,
it was so anticlimactic.
I thought it was like,
it was a red herring. Is really what it was.
Something sexual or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was just a red herring, and it was a stupid red herring. And I'm like, really?
Mm-hmm.
Like, can we not? I feel like you shouldn't have things in books that don't matter because you're wasting page space and pissing me off. Andy mentions that he tried listening to the Paris apartment twice, got lost. Yeah. But you have a book of the month club. Yeah. So you might try to finish it. Otherwise, Foley is off your list. Let's see here. Allie says in Big Little Lies, people's trauma was not a defining element of their personality lives, or two characters would be okay, but not every single one. Yeah. I agree. I feel bad.
And like in this, go ahead.
Oh, to be comparing it so much, had we not read Big Little Lies first, maybe we'd feel differently about this one. So like you said too, like we're not trying to like bash Foley by any means, but just comparatively, the writing styles are just worlds apart, and I'm just not really a big fan of Foley. I don't think I'll read anything else of hers.
Yeah. I do have the audiobook for The Hunting Party. I'll try that again, but I want to make sure I listen to it all in one go because I got confused when I tried it before. But like at least in this one, the bullying, like it's just not addressed. Like it happens all the time, and then it just keeps happening to everybody. And like the perpetrators, then like it gets flipped a little bit, but like it just is there and it just exists. It's not discussed at all, or it's not delved into, and like we don't do this, or like this is what happens, or someone got help for it or didn't, and it's just like part of their makeup now. And but it was picked apart and handled a little bit, and this was just like, yep, here's bullying.
Mm-hmm.
This feels like it's going to be a really weird reference, and probably nobody will have read or watched the series, but if anyone has read the Shetland Island books by Anne Cleves and then also watched the TV show, it feels like a photocopy of the TV show of the books. That's what reading this feels like to me. And I kept thinking about this because it's kind of fuzzy and hazy, and you can see like the main characters are mostly still there, but they just seem kind of flat, but I just kept thinking of it like this is the literary equivalent of a TV show adaptation of a really good mystery series. Like very bizarre. But if anyone has read and watched that, yeah, very much this. This is not a good thing.
I just cannot believe I did not just pee my pants a little bit when I read Allie's message, but talk about a wet firework. What a nothing burger.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm going to have to use that. I've never heard of that before. What a wet firework.
Oh, really?
I've never heard of that before. Mm-hmm. I love it. A nothing burger.
Mm-hmm.
That's so funny. Yeah. The fact, and you said it too, it's mentioned so many times. Yeah, I think it's her attempt of a red herring. I really do. There you go. Someone gets your reference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, that being said, there's not much more to talk about with this book. I didn't feel like there was enough there to really like dive into anything. I mean, I kind of said my piece about everything. Is there anything else that you thought was interesting to talk about? Anything that popped out to you that you felt was worthy of our time to discuss?
I mean,
I don't know.
Not terribly. I will just say that I can see how this book, like I can picture Netflix adapting this and having some big name celebrities attached to it who I might not be fond of, like Vanessa Hudgens, let's say. Nothing against her, but I just don't, she's just not, does nothing for me. But like she'd play like Olivia or something. and like it would be an hour and a half and all this big hype about it, and people would watch and be like, I mean, like, it just seems like it's asking to have a poor adaptation that's really, really hyped.
Oh, absolutely. I could totally see them doing that. And I bet the show would probably be great. Like, it would probably be so much better put together because it would be like a series. So it'd be like, 10 episodes long, and you'd have all this really great depth of background and visual background that you might not ever figure it out. You might be so down the stag party hole that by the time everything happens, you'll be like, oh my gosh, but what about those 3 episodes about the stag party?
I know, but they'd have to change a lot to like flesh out that stag party and make it not the wet firework that it was. That's a great phrase, because it really is. It's just like, okay.
Yeah.
They would have to change quite a few things.
Yeah.
And depending on what country it was made in and who the producers were, it could either be really dark and creepy in tone, or it could be a little more like lighthearted, like Perot.
Right.
Where there's little like moments of levity in there and everything too. Like, but it just, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
like
and I think
said,
overall,
I would try her again. And
yeah. Yeah. I think overall, though, the ending was a little flat too. Just like, so we know who the murderer is, who the murdered person is. Then Jono is arrested. The sisters hug it out, and Hannah basically is leaving her husband because he's a twat. It just was like, oh, really? Like, that got wrapped up real quick.
Right. This is what, like a 2 or 3 day book? Like, it takes place over 2 days or 3 days total?
Yeah. Not very long at all.
It was, just.
Yeah.
Not bad, but not great.
Yeah. Well, I do have to say, this is probably the shortest discussion that we've had, and I'm pretty proud of ourselves because we're going to be able to close out with under an hour.
That is impressive.
I'm excited. I'm like real worried this is going to be real scary. So I'm going to have to read this definitely when it's light outside. And but I'm excited to see if this is better developed for a nice October read. And yeah, I'm excited to get our products up for tomorrow. Anything else that you're kind of excited for in reading world?
Not really. I am nervous about In a Dark, Dark Wood, but then I also remember when it first came out, like 10 years ago now, whenever this first came out, one of my friends on Litzy had read it like right away when it first came out, and she was talking about how much she liked it, and it was really, really creepy and dark. And then a couple of months later, she said that her teenage daughter had like snuck it into her room to read it, like she was stealing a book. She's like, I'm a little disappointed it's not B.C. Andrews, but at least she's got good taste. So I figure if this like 15-year-old can sneak this book and read it and be okay, I'll be okay too. So that might give you a little, like, make you feel a little bit better. And that she was okay with her 15-year-old daughter being like, she can read this and handle it, Reading wise, no, I am reading a whole lot of not much, and just kind of trying to finish things up, and not participating in a lot these days. So just trying to distract myself where I can. So mostly that has been TV lately, but yeah. How about you?
Trying to find a new audiobook since I DNFed the one I was reading. But yeah, I don't know. And it's coming close to the end of the month, so I got to make sure I get my borrows in so that I can start fresh for October. But I did rent the first episode of Miss Marple.
Oh,
so I was
which
watching
one?
that. It's The Body in the Library. I mean,
which Miss Marple? Sorry, who is Marple?
What's that?
Which one?
Oh, it's the Geraldine.
Okay.
Yeah. Which I like her. I like the other one too, but I feel like I've seen that episode so many times, but I'm just like, I want to start at the beginning. But you use one borrow per episode. I'm just like, why can't you have one borrow per season? So, but whatever. Okay. Well, anyways, folks, I think we're going to call it a night and talk to you all later. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching this in replay, thank you so much for joining us. Mention any comments that you may have in the comment section. We'll be sure to catch up with you. And if you're interested, join us in reading in October with Ruth Wares in a Dark, Dark Wood. Okay. Well, I hope you all have a great night. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.